All right, this is Ubaid on behalf of Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about marginal product as well as law of diminishing marginal product. All right, now when we talk about marginal product, we're talking about a slope. Okay, so this is marginal product, and it has to do with change in something. Okay, so this is your marginal product. Suppose you have your number of workers over here, so labor or workforce, the number of workers on the x-axis. Okay, and let's say this is number of trees that these workers cut. Okay, so number of trees, and this has to do with the amount of work done. Okay, now suppose as the number of workers go up, okay, the number of trees cut also go up. Okay, sort of like your supply curve. Okay, suppose this is a curve over here, and this is what the curve looks like. Okay, if you were to figure out the change in number of workers and the change in number of trees cut, okay, this has to do with marginal product. All right, so this has to do with change in output or work done divided by change in labor. So change in work done divided by change in labor. All right, which can also be rewritten as the change in work over change in labor. All right, and this curve, if you were to draw this curve, okay, it would look something like this. Suppose starts off here somewhere, and then it just keeps going down. Okay, so it just keeps going down. And the reason why it keeps going down, as is over here, you have your peak. Okay, suppose this is your peak. And it's the same concept as law of diminishing marginal returns or law of diminishing marginal utility, where once you reach a peak, okay, the marginal utility starts falling down, okay, or downward slope, okay, as you may notice over here. Okay, so basically what's happening is as the number of workers go up, okay, as you have more workers working on the trees, okay, what's going to end up happening is it will reach, okay, you will reach a point where it won't really matter how many more workers you can add, okay, to your workforce. Okay, the number of trees cut may stay the same. Okay, now this is in theory. All right, and you can also apply this theory to a factory or a warehouse, for example. So in a factory, if you have workers working on a machine, okay, let's say you have workers working on a machine, and as you increase your workforce, let's say as the number of workers grow, okay, what's going to end up happening is your productivity is going to go up. Okay, the productivity is going to grow. For that reason, as the number of workers grow, okay, your productivity will grow. Okay, however, if you measure the change in productivity and the change in your workforce, okay, this will be something like this because at some point it will reach the maximum capacity of the machinery that these workers are working on. Similarly, okay, when you have these workers, okay, working in the forest, for example, cutting trees for lumber. Okay, it's possible that they may reach a maximum capacity because of the machines they use, because of the weather outside, because of whatever reason. Okay, and at that point, the marginal productivity, which is the number of trees, the change in number of trees they can cut, divided by the change in number of workers. So for each additional worker that you add to your workforce, okay, what is the change in output? Okay, and that has to do with marginal productivity. So this marginal productivity will be reduced. Okay, once it hits a peak. Okay, once the marginal productivity reaches its peak. All right, and that has to do with another concept called law of diminishing marginal product. Okay, this is law of diminishing marginal product. This is the second concept. It which basically says that as the number of workers grow, okay, there will be change in the number of trees. Okay, which is basically change in number of workers, number of workers will hit a peak, will hit a peak. Okay, at some points, at some points, and the marginal productivity will start having a downward slope, which means it will be reduced. So your marginal productivity will be reduced. Now, the good part is you can actually control your marginal productivity. Okay, you can reduce the impact of law of diminishing marginal product. And the way you can do this is by investing, okay, capital assets into your business. So whether it's equipment, machinery, gadgets, tools, so on and so forth. Okay, the more people you have in the business, the more investors in the business, the more suppliers in the business. Okay, the better the marginal productivity, because as the number of machineries, for example, and we've talked about fixed cost and variable cost in the last video. Okay, your fixed cost will stay the same as you increase the number of machineries. Okay, as you put more machines in your factory, for example. Okay, or your Airbnb properties. Okay, or the land that you may own. Okay, as you put more machines on the land that you may own, okay, the number of products that you can produce goes up. Okay, hence, okay, you cancel out the effect of law of diminishing marginal productivity because as you hire more workers, you're also investing in machines at the same time. So when you consider the maximum capacity of the machine in terms of workers, you're actually increasing that maximum capacity, right? If you have 5 machines, you may be able to hire 25 workers. If you have 10 machines, you may be able to hire 50 workers. And just because you hire 50 workers doesn't really mean that your productivity will go down as long as you invest in 10 machines. Okay, you can't hire 50 workers with 5 machines because your productivity at some point will go down because of the maximum capacity of the machines. Okay, as to how many units they can produce. as well as how many workers you can have working on those machines. Okay, so this has to do with marginal product and law of diminishing marginal utility, or law of diminishing marginal product. On behalf of electronics, this is Ubay. Have yourself a great day.